When my mother looked me in the eyes and said, "Look who came to envy," I felt like a ghost at my own family's celebration. That moment is burned into my memory. The scent of grilled food hanging in the air, the sound of clinking glasses, the loud music that made everyone feel festive but made me feel out of place. And there I was, standing at the back of the yard holding a lemon pie no one asked me to bring, next to my son Jaden, who clutched my hand a little tighter as everyone turned to stare. I hadn't been invited. My sister Soraya had just bought a house, or at least that's what the family thought. A big celebration had been planned. Balloons, food trucks, even a live DJ. I saw it all unfold through social media posts, shiny banners, matching family t-shirts, and captions like, "Our girl did it again." No one tagged me, no one messaged, not even a casual, "You coming?" I would have stayed away. Honestly, I tried to, but Jaden saw a post. He saw the whole family gathering, the smiles, the food. He looked at me with his big brown eyes and said, "Why aren't we going?" I tried to lie, but I'm not good at that with him. He knows when I'm hurting. He knows when I'm being quiet to keep the peace. So I said, "We weren't invited." He thought for a second. "We don't need an invitation to show up for family." He's 11. Sometimes I forget he's still a kid. Other times he reminds me how much he's had to grow up watching me navigate things I never should have had to deal with alone. Divorce, moving 3 times in 2 years, stretching one paycheck across a dozen bills, and still finding a way to smile for him. So we went, dressed decently. I wore a soft lavender blouse Jaden picked for me, and he wore his best sneakers. We bought a pie on the way. I didn't want to come empty-handed, even though I wasn't supposed to come at all. When we arrived, no one noticed us at first. The backyard was packed. Aunties laughing near the grill, my cousins playing cards at a folding table, my dad sitting quietly in the shade like he always does, present but never involved. And there was Soraya floating around like a queen, wearing a white jumpsuit and a diamond smile. I stayed near the fence. It felt safer. Jaden stood beside me like a little guardian angel, checking my face every few seconds to see if I was okay. And then she saw me, my mother, Delia. She turned slowly, wine glass in hand, expression unreadable for a second. Then her lips curled, and she said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "Well, well, look who came to envy." It felt like someone slapped me without touching me. My ears rang. I felt eyes on my skin, judging, measuring, tearing. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. She turned her back like she hadn't just poured gasoline on my soul and walked toward Soraya, who laughed like she didn't know better. That laugh stung. It wasn't just noise. It was a reminder that I didn't belong in their narrative. I was the footnote, the one they only mention when comparing. Why can't you be more like Soraya? Soraya's doing so well. Soraya bought a house. What have you done? I started to turn to leave. My hands were shaking. The pie felt like dead weight. My eyes stung. I wasn't going to cry there, not in front of them, but then Jaden said something, quietly, firmly. "Don't move." I looked down. His face was calm but focused. That kind of focus I'd only seen when he was working through a math problem or fixing something around the apartment with me, and I was about to ask him what he meant when he let go of my hand and started walking forward toward the center of the yard. Time slowed, and in that moment, I didn't know what was about to happen, but I knew something was. Something none of them saw coming. Let me take you back a little, before the stairs, before my mother's comment, before Jaden's quiet, defiant bravery. Let me tell you who I am and who I used to be in this family. My name is Amira. I'm 37 years old. I'm a mother, a former wife, a quiet person by nature, and according to my family, the one who never quite lived up to expectations. I was the artsy one growing up, loved books, music, quiet places. I never competed for the spotlight, and in my family, that meant I didn't count. You either made noise or you disappeared. My sister Soraya made noise. She always did. She's 2 years younger than me and has been the center of every family gathering since she was old enough to talk. She won spelling bees, danced in school plays, got elected homecoming queen. Our parents, especially my mom, were obsessed with her success. I don't think they meant to make the rest of us feel small, but when every room is built around one person, You learn to find corners to hide in. I never blamed Soraya, not really. She played the part she was given. I just learned to live quietly, hoping that would earn me peace, if not praise. But peace never came. I married young. A man named Calvin. We were sweethearts from college, or so I thought. He was charming, ambitious, and in the beginning, he made me feel seen. But ambition turned into control, and charm turned into cruelty. When Jaden was 5, I finally walked away. That's when everything changed. In my family, divorce wasn't just taboo, it was weakness. My mother barely looked at me during the process. Soraya told me, "Maybe you gave up too soon." I gave up 5 years of crying in silence before I packed that final box. No one helped me move. No one brought a casserole. Since then, it's been just me and Jaden. We've moved 3 times, once into a friend's basement, once into a shared apartment with a kind older woman who treated Jaden like her own. Now we're finally in our own space, small, humble, but ours. I work full-time at a local library branch. I run the children's programs, help teens apply for scholarships, and recommend mystery novels to retirees who come in twice a week without fail. It doesn't pay much, but it gives me purpose. It gives me peace. Still, in my family's eyes, I faded. No fancy job, no loud milestones, no celebrations. And then, a few months ago, Soraya told the family she was buying a house. A big one in a shiny new development in the suburbs. Hardwood floors, white kitchen. The kind of place you show off with Instagram reels and branded welcome mats. I heard about it secondhand. Aunt Myra texted me something vague like, "You must be so proud of your sister." I smiled politely through my screen, but then something strange happened. A week before the party, Soraya called me. First time in months. She asked casually if I was doing okay. I told her we were fine. She sounded a little rushed, a little nervous. Then she said, "If you want to come by the party, I mean, no pressure, but you can. Bring Jaden." She didn't send me an invite. Not formally. Not like she did with everyone else. That call felt less like a gesture and more like an obligation, like she knew I'd find out and didn't want to look bad. I wasn't angry. I'd stopped expecting warmth from her years ago. But Jaden overheard the call, and when the day came, he insisted we go. So I got dressed. I pulled my hair back in a clip he said made me look fancy. He helped pick out a pie from a bakery near the library, lemon meringue, his favorite. We took the bus, then walked 4 blocks. As we turned the corner and saw the house, Soraya's house, allegedly, I'll admit something. My chest tightened. Not from envy, but from something more complicated. The kind of ache you feel when you realize you've given your family every chance to know you, to love you, and they've chosen not to. Jaden looked up at me. "It's just a house, Mom. You have a heart. That's better." And that's how we stepped into that backyard. Me, invisible. Him holding my hand like it was a lifeline. We didn't expect anything. We just showed up with love. And yet somehow, even that was too much for them to handle. As soon as we stepped through the side gate into the backyard, I felt it. The change in temperature. Not the weather, but the shift in the air when people realize you're somewhere you weren't supposed to be. I held Jaden's hand a little tighter. The yard was full of life. People were laughing, dancing, drinking. The sound of Afrobeats pulsed through 2 standing speakers near the patio. My cousin Caleb was manning the grill. Aunt Myra was already tipsy, waving a plastic cup like a flag. Kids ran back and forth near the inflatable bounce house in the corner. And then there was Soraya, standing front and center, perfectly posed for a selfie with a friend, holding a flute of rosé. Her makeup flawless, her nails long, and painted the kind of red that demands attention. I didn't want to interrupt the moment. I stayed near the back fence, not speaking, not moving too fast. I might as well have been a shadow. Jaden leaned into me and whispered, "They didn't even see us." "They will," I said quietly, unsure if I wanted them to. We stood there for maybe 2 minutes before someone noticed, Uncle Lionel. He spotted me and raised an eyebrow, walking over with that half smile he always wore when he wanted to stir trouble. He looked me up and down, not rudely, but with that backhanded curiosity he was known for. "Well, well," he said, "Amira in the flesh. Ain't this a surprise?" I gave a tight smile. "Nice to see you too, Uncle." "Didn't know you were coming." "Neither did I replied, holding up the pie like a peace offering. He laughed and wandered off, already bored. I exhaled slowly. Jaden was watching everything, taking it in with those observant eyes. He didn't say anything, but I knew he was cataloging each moment, just like I was. Then she came, my mother, Delia, wearing a lilac blouse and a necklace I hadn't seen since I was a teenager. She was sipping wine from a glass stem and talking to one of her church friends. But as soon as her eyes landed on me, her smile flattened. She walked toward me, slow and deliberate, like she was deciding how much of a scene to make. Then she stopped just a few feet away, looked me dead in the eye, and said loud enough for the entire left side of the yard to hear, "Look who came to envy." Time stopped. I wish I were exaggerating, but those words cut through everything. The music, the chatter, the comfort I tried to bring with me. Jaden flinched, my fingers clenched around the pie tin. People turned. Aunt Myra did a slow double take. Caleb peeked from the grill. Soraya caught the moment mid-laugh and paused, mid-toast. No one said a word, just silence. Thick, ugly silence. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came. What could I say? That I wasn't envious? That I came in peace? That I just wanted my son to feel like part of a family that had tried so hard to pretend we didn't exist? I looked down at Jaden. He looked up at me like he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. Not because it was new, but because it had happened in public this time. No masks, no sugarcoating, just raw disrespect. My mother turned without waiting for a reply and rejoined the crowd, laughing with Soraya like nothing had happened. They clinked glasses. They posed for another photo, and I stood there, a few feet from the balloon arch that read, "Welcome home, Soraya," like an intruder. Jaden whispered, "Can we go?" I nodded. I wasn't going to cry there. I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. I turned slowly and started to walk back toward the gate, my head low, the pie untouched in my hands. We were halfway to the exit when I heard Jaden's voice. "Wait." I stopped. He let go of my hand. Then, without another word, he walked away from me, past the grill, past the patio table, past the crowd, and stepped into the center of the yard. I froze. My heart started pounding. My voice caught in my throat. What was he doing? What was he about to say? Whatever it was, I knew this. He wasn't just speaking for himself. He was about to say the thing I never had the courage to say. I stood frozen, still holding that stupid pie, watching my son walk away from me and toward the very people who had just humiliated us. His little shoulders squared, his walk steady, no hesitation. At first, no one noticed him. Jaden doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't stomp or shout. But there's something about the way he moves, this quiet confidence, that makes people stop and pay attention, and one by one, they did. My mother turned first, confusion creasing her face, then Soraya tilting her head slightly, her champagne glass halfway to her lips. Uncle Lionel, of course, leaned in like he was waiting for a show. Jaden reached the center of the yard, right next to the banner that said, "Home Sweet Home," and cleared his throat. The music was still playing in the background, some pop remix thumping lazily out of the speakers, but his voice sliced right through it. "Excuse me." That's all it took. A hush fell over the crowd. I stood by the gate, paralyzed, my mouth dry, fingers digging into the sides of the foil pie tin. My chest burned. I wanted to run to him, pull him back, shield him from whatever was coming next, but I couldn't move. It felt like the whole world had paused to hold its breath. Jaden glanced around at the faces watching him, and then said, clearly, calmly, "Actually, this house, my mom bought it." It was like the ground shifted beneath us. There was a beat of stunned silence. You could almost hear minds trying to process it, eyes darting between Jaden and Soraya, and then to me. My heart dropped. He wasn't supposed to say that. It was never meant to be public. I had never told anyone in the family, not even my father. Not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't want to shame Soraya. Months ago, when she came to me crying, telling me the bank had declined her mortgage approval, twice, I didn't mock her. I didn't laugh. I helped, quietly, because that's what family is supposed to do. I had just received a small inheritance from my grandmother. It wasn't much, but I'd been saving it for a rainy day. When Soraya said she didn't want to lose the house she had picked out, I offered to buy it in my name and let her pay me back in installments. She cried, hugged me, told me she would tell everyone we did it together. But I should have known. Once the closing was done and the keys were in her hand, she never mentioned me again. Until now. Until Jaden mentioned me. Soraya blinked fast. My mother's eyes narrowed, trying to decide whether Jaden was lying or whether the lie had been theirs all along. Jaden wasn't done. She didn't say anything before because she didn't want to embarrass anybody. She said we're supposed to help each other and not make people feel small. His voice didn't waver. His chin was high. He looked so much like his father in that moment, but stronger, more honest, more kind. I didn't know what to do. The crowd had turned again, this time toward me, people whispering, Aunt Myra's jaw practically on the floor. Uncle Lionel just whistled softly and said, "Well, now." I stepped forward slowly, legs shaking. I didn't know if I was walking toward a confrontation or just trying to reach my son before anyone else could speak. Soraya finally found her voice. "Amira," she said sharply, her face flushed. "That's not... He doesn't understand how it works. You didn't buy the house." "It's in my name," I said quietly. Soraya flinched. I could see her calculating her next move. My mother looked at me, her mouth tight. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked. That question, that tone. Not thank you, not I'm sorry for humiliating you 20 minutes ago. Just accusation. I looked her dead in the eye. Because I didn't think it was about me, I thought this was about Soraya getting her fresh start. I didn't come here for credit, but I also didn't come here to be mocked. I turned to Jaden and opened my arms. He came to me immediately and I wrapped him in the tightest hug I could manage. Around us, the party had gone still. No one clapped. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. The masks had slipped. The truth was out. And even though I hadn't planned to say a word, my son had spoken for me. That was the turning point, not just in the party, but in my life. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was Soraya's voice. Low, bitter, shaking in the way people sound when they're not used to being challenged. "You said you didn't want anyone to know. You said you weren't trying to take credit." She wasn't wrong, but she also wasn't right. I looked up at her. This woman I had once cradled as a baby. This woman who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms and ask if I would ever leave her. This woman who now stood across from me like a stranger. "I didn't want the credit," I said evenly. "I wanted you to have peace. I wanted you to feel safe. But peace doesn't come by rewriting the truth and cutting people out of the picture." My voice didn't rise. I didn't have to yell. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't need volume to be loud. Soraya looked around at the crowd, searching for someone, anyone to back her up. But the room had changed. The air had changed. People weren't smiling anymore. Some of them weren't even looking at her. They were looking at me, at Jaden, at the story they hadn't been told. "She's lying," Soraya said suddenly, pointing at me. "She's doing this to humiliate me." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Jaden looked up at her and said something so simple, so pure, it silenced the entire yard again. "My mom didn't come here to embarrass anyone, but you embarrassed her first." That was it. That was the moment everything changed. My mother, Delia, stood rooted in place. She wasn't sipping her wine anymore. She was watching me in a way I hadn't seen since I was a child, like she didn't know what to do with me now that I'd stopped playing small. Uncle Lionel, of all people, cleared his throat and said, "Well, if the house is in her name, it's in her name. Truth's truth." No one disagreed. Soraya's face crumpled. For a second, I thought she might cry, but instead she walked away, back toward the patio, where her curated decorations and borrowed image of success couldn't protect her from what had just happened. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. My father stood from his lawn chair for the first time since we arrived. He walked toward me slowly, carefully, like he was approaching a ledge. "Is that true?" he asked quietly. "You bought the house?" I nodded. "It's in my name. I paid the down payment. She's paying me back monthly." He looked down at Jaden and smiled, sad and small. "You got a brave one here." Jaden beamed. "She's the brave one." I didn't expect what came next. My dad reached out and took my hand. "You did good, Mira. Real good." It wasn't much. It wasn't an apology. But from a man who had stood on the sidelines for so long, it felt like a breaking of silence, a recognition. Then he did something I'll never forget. He took the pie from my hands and walked it over to the food table. "We've got lemon meringue over here," he called out to no one in particular. And just like that, the spell broke. People started moving again, talking again. The DJ turned the music back on, softer this time. A few guests nodded at me as they passed. Aunt Myra gave me a quick, awkward hug. Someone asked Jaden if he wanted juice. We didn't become the center of the party, but we were no longer invisible. That mattered more than I can explain. I sat down at one of the folding tables with Jaden beside me. He was eating a hot dog and swinging his legs like this was the most normal Saturday of his life. But he kept glancing at me every few minutes like he was still checking to see if I was okay. I was. For the first time in a long time, I really, truly was. I didn't need a banner. I didn't need a toast. But I had been heard, seen, defended. And not by me, but by the little boy I had raised with love and truth, even when the world gave us none. That was the moment the old story ended, and a new one where I wasn't small, wasn't silent, wasn't erased, finally began. We didn't stay long after that. I thanked my father for the gesture with the pie. He gave me a quiet nod, one of those rare, almost shy acknowledgments he was never good at putting into words. My mother still hadn't said anything, and at that point, I didn't expect her to. Soraya kept her distance. She spent the rest of the afternoon surrounded by her friends, smiling for photos, pretending none of it had happened. But the light in her eyes was different. Not angry, just exposed. And maybe that was enough. Jaden asked if we could go before the sun went down. I didn't argue. We walked back the same way we came, hand in hand, but everything had changed. The street felt quieter, lighter, like we had left something heavy behind, buried in the yard with all the fake smiles and forced cheer. He looked up at me while we waited for the bus and said, "Was that okay?" What I said? I stopped and knelt down in front of him. That was more than okay. That was brave. He looked relieved. Not proud, not smug, just relieved. Like he had carried something heavy too, and now it wasn't his to carry anymore. That night, back at our apartment, I sat by the window with a cup of tea and watched Jaden fall asleep on the couch, still wearing his party sneakers. He had defended me without hesitation, without permission, without even fully understanding what it would cost. That's the thing about kids. They tell the truth before they learn how to be afraid of it. And me? I've spent most of my life trying to be small enough not to upset people. I stayed quiet to avoid conflict. I swallowed my feelings because I didn't want to add more weight to the room. But silence has a price. I spent years being the one who didn't ask for help, didn't expect recognition, didn't correct people when they told the story wrong. I thought that made me strong. But real strength isn't about how much you can hold in. Sometimes it's about knowing when to finally let something out. I didn't go to that party to make a scene. I didn't go for closure or revenge or to make a point. I went because my son asked me to show up for family, and I wanted him to believe family was still something worth showing up for. Now I realize family isn't just blood. It's who shows up for you, who stands beside you when it's uncomfortable, who tells the truth, even when it's inconvenient. In that backyard, I was reminded of something powerful. You don't need permission to belong. You don't need applause to matter. And when someone tries to write you out of your own story, you can stand still, or you can speak up. I didn't speak up that day, but Jaden did. And maybe that's the greatest testament to the life I've built, that my son, at 11, has more courage than I did at 30. That means I must be doing something right. Since that day, things have shifted, subtly, quietly. Soraya hasn't brought up the house again. She texted me once, a short message. "Thanks for everything. I'll start payments next week." I replied with a thumbs up. It was more peace than I expected, and maybe more than she's ready to give. My mom hasn't apologized, but she did show up at the library last week while I was working the children's reading circle. She didn't say much, just stood in the back and watched as I helped Jaden lead the younger kids through story time. When it ended, she gave me a faint smile and left without saying a word. It wasn't healing, but it wasn't hate either, and sometimes, in families like mine, That's where you start. Not with fireworks, but with space, with truth, with small shifts in direction. I'm not waiting for an apology anymore. I'm not holding my breath for recognition. I know who I am. I know what I did. I know the weight of staying silent for too long, and the freedom that comes when you finally stop. And most importantly, I know I'm not alone, because my son, my brave, bright, loyal little boy, stood beside me in the silence and used his voice to make the world listen. That's a kind of love that no celebration can fake. That's a kind of victory no banner will ever capture. But it's mine, and it's real. Some stories don't end with applause. Sometimes they end with a quiet kind of truth, the kind that finally sets you free. If this story touched you, if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or uninvited in your own family, you're not alone. I hope you found something in my journey that made you feel stronger, braver, or simply more understood. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself or someone you love when no one else would? I'd love to hear your story. If this resonated with you, please like the video to help more people find it. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more real stories like this one. Thank you for watching and for listening. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and never let anyone write your story for you.